Well, hello, Kelowna. I'm Jim Czech. This is Kelowna Now Live, and I'm here with Darryl Reuter. Either or, I guess.
Either or works for me, yeah.
Royal LePage.
Yep.
Pretty not bad pizza.
Yep.
Pretty good pizza, I would say.
Pretty good pizza.
Black Box.
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
And long-time Kelowna resident.
Yeah. I've been around in community for 22 years, selling real estate, doing charity events. Philanthropy is a big part of my life, so it's a community I grew up working in and care about for sure.
Jason was saying you started the 100 Men Who...
Yeah, me and a couple
care.
friends started that, and that's, obviously had to take a bit of a break during COVID, but it's been back and going strong.
And you're famous recently for posting on the internet saying tourism is dead.
This is why I don't make political posts. And I said not to get political, but tourism in Kelowna is officially dead. And funny enough, I was on the beach in Mexico with a margarita in my hand, but my phone started blowing up with all the people commenting. And, with the NDP government putting in these rules seemingly overnight that we're not allowed to Airbnb any properties. And then the city of Kelowna taking that a step further. And then obviously the government saying no to the exemptions that they had asked for is a huge hit. It's going to be a huge hit for tourism here, for business owners. The trickle-down effect is going to be huge.
It's been pretty tough slugging, and restaurant businesses have faced a lot of that, well, tourism business in general. COVID obviously was one of the biggest hits we've felt, most businesses, including ourselves. We've closed down a couple of our businesses because of that. But then the fires show up, and then they do another thing that they backpedal on a couple of days later when they say nobody's allowed in Kelowna. If you have reservations or you're here, get out. And that basically killed our August, September.
Yeah, that hurt us definitely down at Pretty Not Bad and Black Box. I mean, it was it's real estate wise, it was fine, and there was nothing to be done during that time, which is obvious. But the restaurant side of it, we had to close, and we were just getting rid of product as good as we can, taking some food to the fire lines and doing everything we could that way.
And full disclosure, my son has an Airbnb in Brooklyn, and he bought it that was zoned that way. He made that investment because the only way he could afford it was to live in it in the wintertime and Airbnb it in the summer so that he could afford it because it's expensive for a young guy.
Yeah.
And then when they made that announcement, basically he refunded all the cancellations, and then he had never had another booking, I don't think, till November.
Yeah.
And it basically wiped out his ability to make any money to help him with his mortgage.
And that's going to be the issue. I mean, give or take, there's about 12 buildings in Kelowna on this side of the bridge that have had this. I think it's a C9 commercial zoning that allows and zoned for short-term rental use. Some of the bigger ones, obviously Playa del Sol, Discovery Bay, those types of places. I mean, those are born and bred for short-term rentals. And there's a lot of people in there that own, kind of like your son, but maybe they're retired and they own a few of them and they're not going to be able to rent those out anymore. I do find that selling real estate here for so long, and I have a ton of clients that own Airbnbs, those buildings traditionally have traded, call it 15% or so higher than their market value based on the ability to be able to do that. So,
and they're vacation homes really too, right?
Exactly. And like I was talking to Jason about this before, and I'm not denying that there's a housing crisis, an affordability crisis. Everybody feels that, and I don't agree with Airbnbs up in the upper Mission in a $3 million
in residential
house.
areas. It doesn't make sense. But and for myself too, I totally agree. Anybody that bought a property, invested in a property with information that was available at the time, they followed all the rules, it was zoned properly and everything, and they made that investment based on that information. To have it taken away, I mean, I've talked to another realtor recently, and they're talking about class action suits, and I can't see why they wouldn't, because they did follow the rules. And Airbnbs are not causing this housing crisis in my mind. And 1.5 million people being added to our already tight housing market is part of that. And allowing foreign buying and all that kind of stuff is more so to deal with it than, I think it's a little bit of the blame game where they try to find a villain that they can direct people's anger at, and they're just saying, oh, it's the Airbnbers that are causing the issue.
Yeah, and again, not to get too political, but I think that our provincial government here put that in without taking into account different municipalities and how they would be affected. Yeah. I mean, hotels haven't had an issue being booked here in the last 2-3 years. I think the Grand was packed last year at $600 a hotel night. Now it's going to be $900.
I've seen 1,000 and stuff like that. So Kelowna is a tourist town and also allows for traveling nurses and other professionals that come here, and then also for students. Like lots of people in the Airbnb market do student housing during the off season and do the vacation rentals in the summer. So
yeah, absolutely. Playa del Sol is huge for that. You know, they make their income in 3 or 4 months of the summer, and then they rent them out at a reasonable rate to students. And the system's always worked. But you know, this is just going to affect so many industries. I can't see too many low level or medium level income families being able to afford to come to Kelowna anymore when they have to spend that much money on a hotel room where they don't have a kitchenette, where they aren't able to cook their own food.
Because health is part of that though too, right? So for a lot of people that travel, I know myself, when I look to travel, I look to find something where I can actually cook at least a couple meals a day myself, so that I can eat healthier instead of like eating out all the time, which is obviously a lot more. And you have a restaurant, but it's tougher if you're eating out steady, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, I have a pretty bland breakfast. It's basically like a 4-egg omelet. And that's pretty bland, but I could make that at home in a couple minutes right after I work out. So
yeah, and it's going to trickle down to other industries too. I ran into a client of mine yesterday who owns a wine tour business, and 80% of his end users are tourists, and the majority of them he's picking up at these Airbnb buildings, and he's really worried as to what this summer is going to bring, and I fear it's going to bring a huge drop in his business and all of our businesses. Because
I mean, what they don't realize though is that Airbnb, if people like Airbnbs and you can't rent one here, they'll just probably go somewhere else.
They will go somewhere else. They'll go to Peachland, somewhere that is less than 10,000 people, which I hear they're still allowed to Airbnb, and they'll go to those different communities and move away from Kelowna. And tourism's too big here. We don't have a ton of industry. We have a very big hospital, a very big airport, and a big population, but we don't have a ton of industry to support it. So
it seems like odd and unfair. Like I see it for the people that were breaking the rules, that were doing, you know, Airbnbs without licenses and that. I mean, they should have followed the rules, and that's what it is. But if like a building like Brooklyn was designated Airbnb short-term rentals, and it's kind of like a zoo in there in the summertime, it makes it even tough to live in there. But you know, it allows a young person to purchase a property and then use that income to kind of help them supplement it, right? So
absolutely. And you know, not to pick on certain buildings, but Playa del Sol, like those are built for short-term rentals. They were originally built for it and zoned for it, and they're not very well set up for people for long-term living. I mean, it can work, but it's, you know, I think that they didn't think through the ramifications and the details of what they were trying to do with the rules.
And I've seen some hotels renting out Airbnb places. Are they going to be able to get around those rules because they're going to be designated a hotel?
Yeah, they'll still be a hotel zone. So that's, from what I understand, they'll still be fine. But I mean, they're saying even if it has a front desk, if it's short-term rentals, I'm thinking of like Barona Beach and I can't remember the name of the other one across the lake, but they'll be toast too. So
interesting times.
Yeah.
The restaurant business, tough slug, right?
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's fun. It's engaging in the community. It's giving the community something that they want and need for sure. So that's a fun part of it. But it's been tough the last few years.
But it's tough enough just running a business when you weren't shut down. Do you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, just like it's out of your control. Just like, hey, this is the rule today. This is the rule. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of tough, right? Like especially small businesses, right? So
yeah, and both of our restaurants, Black Box and Pretty Not Bad. I mean, we have a ton of local support, which is amazing, but that's supplemented by tourists in the summer. And you know, Black Box is a healthy meal prep grab and go, and we have tons of people that are staying here in short-term rentals that come in and buy meals for their stay.
Right. During COVID, I think we've kind of a learned behavior. Like the pickup stuff has improved, though, hasn't it? Like the DoorDashes and the
and we use those
and all that stuff.
It's just become such a staple. That's the change that happens, right? Something happens, it creates change, which is an add-on. I mean, that's good for the restaurant owners, and that's also good for the community to be able to have easier access to what they want when they want. So it's great.
What do you want to see the government do?
I want to see the government take a serious look at this and realize that they probably missed the boat. And not just Kelowna, there's other, you know, tourism driven communities that weren't properly thought out. And, you know, I'm not one to run for politics. I don't think we'll see that anytime soon, but maybe there's some sort of a task force or a group of minds we can put together as a bit of a lobbyist group to try to change something or help something, because it's not going to be easy. So
you're obviously frustrated when you're laying on the beach in Mexico to do that post, right?
Oh yeah.
Frustrated. I had a couple.
You can ask. My girlfriend was with me, and she said that was fun, but you were so mad for the rest of the day. I'm like, I was very frustrated. Your mood, right? Sorry about that.
What was the feedback from most of the, like, you had a lot of comments back. What was it, mostly supportive, or were some people just saying like, I don't care. We need more rentals.
Yeah, mostly supportive. I mean, there are people that, my network and my Facebook group and friends, that a lot of them are business owners, realtors, people in that type of a business like myself. But there was a lot of people that echoed like, hey, look, we need more rentals. And, I would argue that our rental situation is getting way better here. There's a lot of vacancy and prices are coming down.
Well, we do a story almost every day where we're talking about another building announced, right, for like all rental building, right? And again, designated all rentals, which is, zoned that way and sold that way, developed that way, no different than the short-term rental buildings, right?
Yep.
So
it's going to be, it'll be interesting to see how it ends up rolling out. But
when you're an entrepreneur, when you have money and in a business, what business wants most of all, or investment, is certainty. And if all of a sudden you can change the rules, then a place like Alberta becomes more attractive if you're looking to invest. Do you know what I mean? If they can just take away your investment and change the rules, almost like expropriate your property and say, no, you can't do it that way, even though you did everything right based on the zoning, based on the laws at the time.
Yeah.
And they take it away, it makes you look elsewhere for where they don't do things like that.
Well, and back to when I was in Cabo, a friend of mine that I was staying there with who used to live up here, and he said, this is the exact same reason why I don't want to be there anymore. And I go back to when the council here, when that property was sold, the golf course, Kelowna Springs, and then all of a sudden they decided to change the zoning. The developer was out $30-40 million, whatever they spent on it. And they might get sued for that. I don't know, but it was just a thing where we're
seeing a lawsuit downtown right now on the RCMP building. And I believe that, I've talked to some other people. I believe there will be lawsuits. And I believe Airbnb will support some of those lawsuits with that, because again, it's people that follow the rules, and I think you can control them. Every market needs a mix, right?
Yep.
Like every market needs a mix, and they need to control that mix, but that's what city council does. They control that mix by authorizing buildings or not authorizing buildings.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen mayor and council step up a little bit more for us in this one and actually go to the government and have a proper fight and proper material and proper information to be able to hedge this a bit for us.
I would say it was more of a populist move, and then do you know what I mean? Because it's the flavor of the day. And again, I look at it and say, like, look, you're taking a group and you're trying to say that's the villain, that's the reason, but not ignoring the 1.5 million people that immigrated here, stressing the housing market. Like, why not more controls on only allowing so many people that we have housing availability, right? As opposed to stressing, the housing market, our health market, and all those other things, right?
Yeah, I won't get too much into immigration. I do want us to be an open country, but I feel like we can only be as open as our resources allow us to in general. So, that's above my pay grade to figure that out.
But if you let more, if the demand goes higher, and then you look for a scapegoat, and that seems unfair to pull that scapegoat out.
It's the cart after the horse.
Yeah, sure. And it's
horse before.
You're in the industry with real estate agents. What's the general mood there?
There's a lot of optimism around this year's market being a little bit better than last year, which is good. A lot of realtors are upset about the Airbnb situation based on the fact that they, have a lot of clients with Airbnb as rental units. Now, that being said, there's not many realtors out there that don't agree that we have a housing crisis. Prices are crazy. Nobody likes paying these prices, and there is a shortage. So they're all for options.
But we need more housing.
But we need more housing.
Right. And it's tough to even get a lot here.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what I mean? So and they're starting to do some of that infill stuff too, because we have some large lots in Rutland and stuff like that. But
and the city's actually changed a bunch of zonings recently, which will actually help putting more units on certain subdivisions and certain lots that have been existing for a long time. And that's good progress, right? That's making some change and doing some stuff, which I agree with. Yeah, no, having a blend makes sense, right? But we need to support our tourism at the same time. That's the issue. It's still one of our bigger industries. Yeah, absolutely. Is it not? And then I think, more wildfire mitigation needs to happen, because, we cannot be known as smoke and Ogden. And I think that fire last year, not so much the fire, but the rule all of a sudden that came down says get out. That's never been done in the past too, where you're not allowed to come to Kelowna. You need to close off your reservation. We need the properties for this. And then we spoke to so many hotels that said nobody took up the rooms that were vacated. No, and I think that was maybe a little bit short-sighted as to how they dealt with that. Maybe they thought it was going to be a bit different, but we needed tourism at that time more than ever. Why wouldn't they just buy up blocks of hotel rooms or something like that? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then putting money in the pockets of the entrepreneurs instead of emptying the pockets, right? Do you know what I mean? That's what they did.
And then, like, I don't know if they're lobbying, or they're likely trying to lobby to get some of that back or whatever. But like, I mean, it hurt a lot of people.
Well, and it's with this Airbnb stuff, what it's doing essentially now is catering to big business, the big hotel ownerships.
Sure.
And we don't have enough hotels as it is. So, I mean, it's cutting off the smaller.
I mean, they love it, right? Because, hey, there goes competition, right? So.
Yeah. But I think if you asked a lot of them, they wouldn't say there's been a whole lot of competition. There has been a gradual trend in the last 3 years where people have been moving back from Airbnbs to hotels. So there's still a mix where people are like, yeah, we tried the Airbnb, but we got the cleaning fee, we got to this, we got to that.
Yeah, pricing fixes everything, right? Like a capitalist market,
exactly.
that's what fixes things, right?
It washes itself out and has some regularity to it.
And that's how you get better things, because then the hotel says, well, we'll offer these things that people like to stay. Like we're going to Hawaii here in the next little bit here, and I did look at Airbnbs, ended up settling on a hotel because, I found a hotel that kind of filled what I needed. Like, it has a small kitchenette and it has the fitness facilities that I want.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Great. So
the system works.
Yeah, I mean, it's choice, right? Though having that choice is.
We're going down to Arizona for a golf tournament here shortly, and there's a group of 10 of us. Yeah, it's a good time. There's a group of 10 of us, and we rented an Airbnb house there, which is actually owned by a guy from Kelowna.
Oh, nice.
And it was, 10 of us can stay there. It's affordable for us in that sense, and we get to cook our own food and save a little bit of money on that.
Yeah, definitely groups can really benefit our families, right?
Yeah.
Because, hotels are pretty strict on.
Yeah, exactly.
How many people you can stay in a room and how noisy you can be too, right?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah. How's the pretty not bad pizza?
Oh, all the food there is actually really good. And I'm not just saying that. It's they've done a really good job there, the managers and the other owners, of creating a good local space. We got some bands that come in. We got different events, cooking events and stuff that have happened. And it's been a good place for a lot of regulars to start to convene and have some fun and some laughs. And
any more plans on any more restaurants?
We might have a couple up our sleeve. We'll see. Yeah.
You got to be careful in restaurant business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That old Kelowna joke, right? How to make a small fortune, start with a large fortune.
Oh, yeah. If you asked me 5 years ago if I've ever been in the restaurant industry, I'd laugh at you. But here I am.
Well, that pizza thing is a pretty good. I think the pizza there is great, and I like the location. That whole area is kind of grown up too, right? Like,
it has lots of good breweries. Redbird's awesome. Vice and Virtue. All of them down there, they do a really good job. So
for anybody that doesn't know, that it was the Bad Tattoo location.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
Anything else you want to add today?
No, I think that's good.
How do we shock the patient and bring back tourism? What do we got to do?
Hey, well, I think that there needs to be some actual awareness brought to this and some actual stats and have something presented to the government that might actually be able to get them to open their eyes a bit and see, hey, look, we know you're doing this to solve a certain issue, but you might be creating all these other issues at the same time.
Right.
And how do we mold that together so it's actually still accomplishing what they want, but also protecting some industries?
Do you think Kelowna's had a strong enough voice in that we've had an NDP government close to 8 years and we don't have any NDP representation here in the Valley?
No, not at all. I mean, that's probably part of the issue, but
yeah. So I think like it used to be like nobody really wanted to talk about politics because everything's kind of okay, but it seems like that's what's on everybody's mind these days is politics. Right?
And I'm the least political person that you'll meet, and it's coming to the forefront where I'm like, hey, I need to be involved. I need to be able to start some conversations and start some action.
It's becoming, both at the federal and provincial level, it's becoming
it is
a concern where it's like, we see inflation at all-time highs, and we see energy costs and all kinds of stuff, and people can't afford their homes, and we got a bunch of people renewing. Do you have any clients that are worried about renewing their mortgage at this point?
Oh, tons, yeah, absolutely. And the only little reprieve is that it sounds like mortgage rates are going to come down a little bit, which would be helpful. But yeah, there's a lot of young families that bought a home, and and they might be worth a little less, and their mortgage rates are going to go up, and it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, it's scary, and then we can play that. I'd like to play that clip all the time of Tiff Macklin saying 2 years ago, where he said, "Don't worry, go out and get that mortgage. Rest assured, we will not be increasing rates." You rest assured, Canadians, you go ahead and you get that mortgage.
Yeah, here we are.
19 times. Over the 0.25. 19. Just in case you weren't counting.
Yeah, no, I counted. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for coming in today.
No problem. Thanks for
having me.
And
I think, again, raising your voice is the only way to get things done.
I think so. Yeah.
You've been watching Kelowna now?